What's going on, guys? In today's video, we're going to be ranking the top 9 ways home service businesses get their customers. I'm going to be taking each one of these and I'm going to put it through a gauntlet of some ratings. We're going to rate it on 4 different attributes. These are going to be rated 1 through 10. It's going to be cost per lead, the quality of that lead, the scalability of the lead acquisition system, and how consistent it is week after week, month after month. Then at the very end, I'll rank them for you, show you what I think is the best, show you what I think you should be focusing on. So grab a coffee, sit back, let's get started. All right, let's look at the 9 that we're going to be reviewing today. I've got a wide variety of different lead acquisition systems here, just so we can see, what makes sense for your business. So we have review platforms, referrals, search engine optimization, door knocking or canvassing, traditional advertising. This would be like newspapers, billboards, TV ads, social media. This would be more like organic social media. So posting on Facebook, posting in Facebook groups, posting on YouTube, posting on Instagram, organic, not paid. Then we have Google advertising, pay per click advertising, Google local service ads. These are the newer version of Google advertising, and meta ads. So Facebook ads and Instagram ads. So let's start with this first one, review platforms. Again, I'm going to be ranking this on 4 attributes. We have cost per lead, the quality, the scalability, and the consistency. Now, when I say review platforms, I mean a few different things. We have the icons over here. I kind of just wanted to group all these together. You could call these a shared lead platform. You could call these review platforms like I have here, lead marketplaces, whatever you want to call them. What I'm talking about is Angie's List, Yelp, Home Advisor, Thumbtack, all of these services where you pay them per lead. And in some cases, they send your lead to multiple different people, and whoever responds first gets the lead. And each platform's a little different than the other, but if you're using one of these, you probably know how that platform works. The first one I want to do is cost per lead. Now, this is gonna be kind of hard to rank for me, just because they're all different platforms, so they're all a little different. But realistically, I think the cost per lead for these tends to be on the lower end, maybe the middle range for what we're looking at today. And that's because of the quality, which I'll talk about next. So for cost per lead, I'm gonna go ahead and give this, say 6 out of 10. So 6 being closer to good, so 10 being really good. This is on the better than average side. Quality of that lead, now this is where we have a different discussion, because as if you use one of these platforms, these people, while they are interested in your service, a lot of the time they tend to be tire kickers. A lot of the time they're price shopping. And the biggest downfall of these platforms is that not only are they sending this lead to you, but they're sending it to your 3 other competitors. So you have to deal with speed to lead, you have to give a quote, and a lot of the time these people who are the potential customers, they're smart. They're going to get a quote from everybody and then just pick the lowest one. So that's why I have to give a really low score here. I'm going to call it 2. And the only reason it's 2 is because, they at least want your service, right? Next thing, scalability. I say scale here to keep it short, but how quickly can you scale on this? If you are, if you're looking to double your volume next week, how can you do that on these platforms? Again, this is kind of a tough one to rank. I'm leaning towards the middle, just because, well, yes, it's scalable. Only so many people are going to be going on Thumbtack. Only so many people are going on to Angie's List, etc. So I'm going to give it, maybe it's around a 5. And then you're going to run into those same issues I talked about before with the quality. So it's something to consider. Then finally, consistency. Consistency is actually pretty good. You can probably get the same amount of leads week over week. Consistency is not really the downfall of this or the pro of this. Now, when I say consistency, I'm also talking about how quickly I get my result. So when I invest today, am I getting that result tomorrow, or is it going to take me 3 months, 6 months, 5 years, etc.? That could be its own 5th metric. I just don't want to bloat this too much. I'm going to kind of combine the 2. With that, I'm going to give it about a 7. I think you can get it pretty quickly. You can get it pretty consistently week after week, but the consistency kind of falls apart when you're dealing with the quality of that lead. This is really the big downfall. This is the quality. So let's add this up, and we get a 20. So review platforms, 20 out of 50. All right, the next one I want to look at is referrals. A lot of people I talk to, they rely on referrals a lot. It's one of the main sources of their business, whether that's because the business has been around for 30 years or because they do good work, so they kind of get referrals from the neighborhood. So maybe you're putting in a new floor for somebody in your neighborhood. They see your truck. Somebody else, the neighbor calls the neighbor saying, hey, how's that company? Like, oh, they're great. Go get a floor done as well. Boom, there you go. This happens a lot within neighborhoods because neighborhoods all tend to be built around the same decade. So if you have a service like some sort of kitchen remodeling service or whatnot, everybody in that neighborhood tends to need that service around that same time. So this kind of works well in that. Or another way you can mean referrals, just family, friends, friend of a friend, people personally. So start with cost per lead. I mean, this is a pretty easy one. It's an immediate 10 because they're essentially free, right? You're not really paying anything for this. They're just there. They're ready to work with you. They don't take any money. It's just a network effect. Now, moving over to quality, I'm going to put the quality a little lower than you might think. I'm going to put these guys at like, honestly, 6, because I'm sure you've experienced this, but sometimes when you have a family friend who, that you need the service for, they might want a little cheaper deal. They might not exactly need what you primarily service, so they might not be your ideal customer. Maybe they have a small job and you normally like bigger jobs. Or maybe they have this issue, but you normally solve this issue. So you've probably experienced that before, where you're kind of going outside your comfort zone a lot of time working with these folks. Scalability on this, I mean, I'm going to put this at a 1, because you can't scale this. There's no way to know when your referrals are coming in. It's completely unpredictable. So that's a 1 there. And again, with consistency and speed, unfortunately, it's also going to be a 1. You don't know. You just simply don't know when they're going to come in and how they're going to work with you. So while referrals are super nice and they tend to be great jobs and they're high ROI because they're free, they're not a great thing to rely on, and you probably know this already, so I'm going to go ahead and rank this. This is only getting an 18. Next on our list is going to be search engine optimization, or SEO. This can be your Google business profile or your website getting search engine optimized, getting shown on Google. And even nowadays, it's getting shown on ChatGPT and other AI platforms as well. All right, starting with cost per lead. This is going to be very good because the cost per lead is really close to 0, right? If they're finding you organically, you're not directly paying for it. The only way you're paying is maybe if you're hiring an agency to help you with your SEO or anything sort of like that. I mean, you're paying a different company to put links to your website, but typically this cost per lead is almost 0, so I'm going to give that a 9 out of 10. Not quite as good as referral, but so close, so close. The next thing is lead quality. Again, this is pretty high. The lead quality tends to be very good on these because they're finding you organically. Now, they're not always the best because you're not calling them out specifically, but they tend to find you organically. They know a lot about your business. They checked out your website and can be a great source. So I'm going to give this an 8. Now, scalability. How much can you rely to scale on this? This is when it gets kind of interesting, because what kind of tends to happen is you start to tap out a little bit at a certain point. You only can kind of get so many leads from this. If you wanted to double this next month, it's not really possible, right? If you're getting 10 leads a week from your organic search results and you want to double your fleet, open a new store, all this stuff, it's kind of hard to scale on that. You can't really just rev up the engine. So I'm going to give this let's give it a 6. Consistency. Now this is where it's going to hurt a bit because, like I said before, I'm doing consistency and speed to result, kind of combining these two. And while, yes, SEO is pretty consistent, you might get your 10 a week that you're looking for pretty consistently week after week. The speed is terrible. It's going to take you 6 months, if not more, to even get any sort of traction. If you're in a very competitive area, this is going to be even harder to work for you. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of work. And it's a slow growth thing. It's not a invest now, see the return in a month. It's invest now, start seeing return in 6 months. So because of that, I'm going to have to drop this pretty low to 3. Now, if you're just looking at this and you just see consistency and you don't know the speed part, that might look a little concerning, but I'm going to have to drop that down. So overall ranking on SEO is actually pretty high. So we have, 18 plus 8. So overall ranking on SEO, we're going to give you a 26 here. Pretty good ranking, best one we've had so far. Don't worry, at the end, I'm going to be showing you listed out top to bottom how they rank. All right, our next one's going to be door knocking or canvassing. I'm going to cover this one pretty quickly because a lot of businesses, this doesn't really make any sense for, like plumbing, right? You're not going to knock on somebody's door and say, hey, is your toilet leaking or anything like that. So this only makes sense for certain industries. So again, I'll cover it pretty quickly. Cost per lead on this, pretty good. I'm going to give it a, probably 7 out of 10. You have to pay your guy to do the canvassing. But overall, cost per lead is pretty low, and it's gonna be a great opportunity for you if it makes sense for your industry. But it all depends on how many knocks that takes, how much you have to pay your canvasser, what their results are, that type of stuff. Quality of lead. These lead quality can be pretty good. You're in the right neighborhood, you're targeting the right people. Sometimes they say yes just to get the guy to go away though. So sometimes the quality isn't 100% the best. I'm going to go with another 7. I think it's a pretty good spot to be in. I think it works really well. Scalability. Now, this is kind of where it falls a little bit. I'm going to give it a 3. And this is just because it requires human capital. You need to have good canvassers. You need to train them up. You need to make sure they're good salesmen. And to be frank, as you know, a lot of people aren't good at sales. It's a hard skill to have. And you need to train them up and you need to get them going. So if you want to scale this opportunity, you just need to hire a ton of people, and that just has a ton of headache involved with it. Consistency, I'll give it a good rating as well. I'll give it a 7. I think we're looking pretty good on consistency. If you have a good team, you got a good crew going, they do pretty well. The only reason I knock it down a bit is because, again, the human side, people get sick, people quit jobs, people, demand more pay, people do what people do. So that knocks it just a little bit here. Overall, we're getting a 24 on this. Next up is traditional advertising. This is newspaper ads, ads in your local church pamphlet, ads on TV, ads on the radio, any sort of traditional advertising. Yard signs is a great one too. And think physical media typically. Now this is going to be very tough for me on cost per lead because the big downfall of this traditional advertising strategy or physical advertising, whatever you want to call it, is it's very difficult to attribute the advertising action to the actual lead itself. I talked to a lot of folks and they say, we're running 8 radio ads for the last 5 years and that's how we get our customers. But we don't know how many of those are just referrals, how many are actually coming because they heard the radio and they chose to call them, how many just looked them up on Google and found them. So it's kind of hard to directly correlate that unless you explicitly ask for it. And even then, humans are humans. They're not always going to be 100% accurate. So because of that, for cost per lead, I'm just going to give it a 5 because again, it's really hard to attribute. Almost the same thing for quality. Quality is going to be also a 5. You're targeting basically everybody in your area. You're not specific with who you're targeting. So you're going to get the best leads. You're going to get the worst leads. You're going to get everybody in between. It's going to be a 5 out of 10 here. It's just middle of the road. It's really the real issue with this. It's untargeted. And because of that, the scalability, I'm even going to give it a lower than that. I'm going to give it a 4 because sure, you can ramp up your radio ads. You can ramp up your TV ads, but some of the more print things like newspaper and billboards, there's only so many billboards. There's only so many newspapers. Only so many people drive by. You can't really scale that super well. It's kind of a thing that you're either doing or not doing. There's no in between, right? There's no ramping it up and scaling month after month. Consistency, this is going to be low as well. Maybe a 4 here because it takes a while to get going. It's very inconsistent. And really the big issue with this is it's really almost impossible to rank because it's so hard to attribute how well this advertising is actually getting you results in your business. But overall, this is what I'm going to give it. I'll give it an 18 and we'll move on to the next one. All right, the last 4 we have here are pretty modern advertising. The bottom 3 are directly paid ads, and this top one is social media. So we'll start with social media, and then we'll get into some of the paid ads. So social media, what is this? This is when you're posting Instagram or Facebook Reels, you're posting TikToks, you're posting videos on any sort of social media platform, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, posting in groups, maybe interacting with local neighborhood groups, this type of stuff. This works pretty well. I mean, it's a good cost per lead. You're really only paying time, right? So whatever time's worth to you, however much that is what you're paying to get these leads. So I'm going to give it a good cost per lead. I'll give it, let's say 8. Quality of lead is also very good. We'll give that an 8 as well, just because you're already building these personal connections with these people by posting on social media. So they already know, like, and trust you, which is the big 3 when it comes to selling. So it makes the quality really high. They're usually pretty familiar with what they do because they stalked your whole page and looked at all the stuff you posted. So quality can be pretty good. Scalability, unfortunately, is kind of where this falls off. I'm going to have to give it a 4. You can only grow so much. You can post more. I think that actually, I'm going to bump it up. I'm going to bump it up to 5. Because I guess what you could do is if you're posting once a day, you could ramp that up to 3 times a day. And you could scale pretty quickly with that. It's really hard to keep up the momentum on posting. So that's why it's middle of the road. Because there's an ability to scale with it. Don't get me wrong. It's just the way you execute that is quite difficult. And you just have to constantly be on these social platforms. And consistency, because it takes a while to grow and because it can be pretty inconsistent overall, I'm just going to have to give that a 3. It's not the best opportunity for consistent growth. But overall, this is a pretty good ranking. We're going to give social media, posting, TikToks, Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, YouTube. It's going to be a 24. If you've been paying attention, we've already have 2 ties. So I'll be doing a tiebreaker at the end. So make sure you stick around for that. But now let's get into the big 3. These are my advertising ones. These are my bread and butter. First one we're going to talk about, which is my personal favorite, Google Ads. So Google advertising. These are Google search ads, Google pay-per-click ads, whatever you want to call them. They've been around since Google's been around. And they work incredibly well to get new customers. So started with cost per lead. This is actually probably their weakest point. Because Google is the only platform in the world where they make that first move, the potential customer reaches out initially, they charge a premium for that. So cost per lead is not the best. I'm going to give the cost per lead probably, let's say it's a 5. Cost per lead can get pricey if you're not doing it properly, but what you make up for with the cost per lead is the quality. The quality of these leads, they have to be a 9 out of 10 for me. These are the most high intent customers you will ever find. If you have your normal close rate, you take this close rate, your close rate's going to be through the roof with this, because if you do this right, you're only getting people who are looking online saying, plumber near me or bathroom remodeler near me. They look you up, they see your business, they have the need, and they choose to reach out to you. These are your ideal customers. And the best part about this is you're only targeting your ideal customers. If you have certain types of customers that you don't like, maybe they only do small projects, or maybe they are, asking for bargains, maybe they're less affluent, or maybe you don't like driving to this part of town because it's too far out of the way. Well, with advertising, you can just simply only advertise to the perfect customers. You can only target people who you truly want to work with. So that's why you can get such a high quality on this. Next, scalability. I'm gonna have to give this a 10 because I truly believe this is the highest scalability platform you can have. As long as you're not reaching your total addressable market, which to be honest, you probably won't, you can scale like crazy on Google. 1 month, you can spend a certain amount of budget. The next month, you can double that, and you can pretty realistically expect to get double the amount of leads, double the amount of business. This is why we prefer it so much. You can just ramp up your scale. You can truly expand. You can even open up new locations and easily implement the ads that are working here into the ads that are working over there. It works incredibly well. Consistency, this is another 10 out of 10 because not only are the leads consistent week after week, month after month, but also the speed to result is super high. I'm talking within a week. You can immediately show up on the top page of Google. If you have a good ad, you have good messaging, and you have good targeting, you'll get rewarded immediately. So it's one of the best ways to immediately start making more money in your business and immediately scale. Can't praise Google Ads enough. Overall, we're gonna give it a 34. All right, final two, Google Local Service Ads will be our second to last. So how are these different than search ads that we just talked about and I just gave so much praise? They're a little different. So Google Local Service Ads, instead of showing an ad per se, they're showing your Google business profile. So they're showing your reviews, the name of your business, a couple pictures, and where you're located. You don't necessarily have the ability to cater your ads to each individual search. And you also don't have the ability to send them to a landing page to even better. And you also don't have the ability to send them to a landing page, so you have no control over your conversion rate. Because of this, this is a pay per lead service. And that cost per lead is completely determined by Google, which is why the cost per lead here, I'm going to give it a pretty bad score. I'm probably going to give it I'll give it a middle of the road. I'll give it a 5 because it's really dependent on your industry and your location and how many competitors are also running this. Quality of these leads, I'm going to give a very high quality. I'm going to give it a 9. These people are, they're looking for your service. They're calling you directly. This is a great quality for high intent searches. And I would normally give this like an 8 because you will get some tire kickers, people shopping around. But the reason I'm giving it a 9 is because Google has an ability with this where you can refund your cost per lead if the person who calls is completely unqualified. It's actually really nice of them to do that. So I would take advantage of that if you are running Google LSA. Scalability, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to give this a bad score. I'm gonna have to give this probably a 2. It's really hard to scale on this. Google's very unclear about how to even outperform other people. It's not very clear yet how people rank higher than others. And some months, they'll give you 10 leads. Some months they'll give you 0. Maybe 1 month you'll get 0 leads, then maybe you'll get 10, then maybe you'll get 50, then maybe you'll get 0. It's incredibly inconsistent, and it's something that I would recommend doing for your business, but I would not recommend relying on it. And I kind of spoke on consistency a bit there. I got a little ahead of myself. But again, consistency, I'll give it a 3. The reason I'm giving it a 3 is because the speed to results pretty high. But the week after week, month after month, you can't predict payroll on this. You can't predict growth on this. It's a great resource if it works for you, but the control is just not there for me to recommend it super highly. Overall, we're gonna get a 21 on here. All right, last but not least, Meta ads. This is on Facebook and Instagram. This is a great way to get customers. I actually really like this method. It works very well. It has some drawbacks to it, but if you can crack it, it's amazing. Starting with cost per lead. Cost per lead can be relatively low here. I'm going to give this like an 8 out of 10. Cost per lead on Meta is very low comparatively to maybe something like Google and stuff. But unfortunately, you get what you pay for. And that kind of shows up in the quality. The quality, I'm only going to give a 5 out of 10. I hear a lot of time from people we work with is that, yes, they get a lot of leads from Meta. They get a lot of leads from Facebook, but they're just not quality most of the time. They have to do some selling. They have to weed out the bad leads and the good leads. And that just kind of hurts the growth overall. Next, scalability. I'm also going to give this, I'll give this a 6. I'll tell you why. Yes, you can scale on Meta, but it is quite difficult because you need to constantly be making new material. So you need to be filming new ads. The thing about Meta ads is they're not just text-based and website-based like Google would be. They're pictures of you and your crew. They're videos. They're what we call creative. It's called creative, the pictures, the videos. And that can be kind of hard to produce regularly at a normal cadence. So scalability is 6, but overall it is pretty scalable. Now consistency, it is quite consistent. I'm gonna give it a 7. Meta ads are very consistent. Unfortunately, they do just have this certain point where they kind of hit a cliff, and that's where you would need to make new videos and new pictures. But if you're maintaining that, you can be pretty consistent with the amount of leads you're getting week after week. It's a really great platform. Actually, I really like running ads on Meta. So it's more leads, lower cost per lead, lower quality leads, and you have to stay on top of your advertising game a little bit more. So it's a little bit more involved on your end to get the result. Overall, we're getting a 26 here. All right, we have some tiebreakers to go through, and I'm going to work through this. So on top, we have Google Ads. I talked about this before. I'll talk about this again. Google search ads are the best way to grow your home service business. They're the best way to scale. If you want to learn more about that, see the ROI, we have a free ROI calculator in the description below this. It's pretty awesome. You plug in your industry, plug in your stats, you can see how much return on investment you can truly make with Google Ads. Please go check that out, completely free. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put Google Ads at number 1. Next, we have a tie. We have Meta Ads and SEO. This is a pretty good tie. I like both of these methods. I think that you should be doing them if you can do them. But what I'm gonna change here, I'm gonna pick one over the other, and I'll tell you why. If you're already doing the number 1 thing you should be doing, which is Google Ads, you might not necessarily need the Meta Ads. You might be favoring towards SEO, because they complement each other really well. So for that, I think I'm gonna give the SEO just like a slight edge over Meta Ads. The caveat here is if you don't have the ability to do Google Ads, maybe you would do Meta and SEO. That'd be better. But if you're already doing Google Ads, SEO beats out Meta Ads slightly, but they're both super important. Next, we have another type. We have door knocking and social media. So these are really great. They're very similar actually if you think about it. Right? Social media it's very human driven, very capital focused. You have to spend a lot of time doing it, just like door knocking. But if I'm gonna pick one over the other, I'm gonna pick social media. And I'll tell you why. Social media lasts longer than door knocking. If you stop door knocking tomorrow, you're not getting any leads tomorrow. If you stop doing social media tomorrow, you might still get leads a year later. They might find your account. If you're doing YouTube videos, those are evergreen, right? This video, you might be watching it a year from now. So social media gets the slight edge over door knocking in that metric. All right, then these are easy. Google LSA is slightly better than those review platforms or those lead brokerage platforms. Really, they're okay. Not a big fan of either of these. Again, do them if they make sense. I think Google LSA is definitely better than these platforms when it works. And then the last two, the final battle, referrals versus traditional advertising. I'm just gonna put referrals above it. It's already above it, and I think I tend to agree. You know what, actually, I'm gonna swap it. Referrals is irrelevant. It's going to happen no matter what you do. You're going to get referrals, so why even talk about it? Traditional advertising, I really like yard signs. I think those work great. I really like wrapping your trucks when you're parking them in your customers' driveways. I think that works really well. I don't think billboards are super important. I think TV and radio are diminishing in relevance. Something I do see working really well, doing it in your local churches, pamphlets they hand out, ads in there. Those like more community-focused newspapers instead of just general newspapers tend to work really well because people like to work with people in their local community. So if you show your face in a local paper, like I said, church, or even maybe a small municipality, small town, tends to work better. But overall, here's our final list. We got Google Ads at the top, then search engine optimization, then Meta Ads, social media, door knocking / canvassing, Google local service ads, review platforms or lead brokerage platforms, then traditional advertising, and then referrals. All of these are excellent options. The one at the top, Google Ads, you got to do it. Check out that link in the description. It's a great resource. You get some ROI from there. And if you're ready to jump into Google Ads, we also have an offer where we will build you the entire system that we do for our clients. We'll do the keyword research, the ad copywriting, we'll build out the whole thing the right way. We'll do all the targeting with you, and then we'll set up individual landing pages for each one of your services. We'll even manage the whole thing for 30 days and give you a full video training so you know exactly how it works, you know exactly what we're doing, and you can manage it yourself. So that's a one-time payment, awesome offer. Go check that out in the description as well. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and check out another video if you're still learning. Don't forget to get that free resource in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next one.